Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of the Scratch the Track podcast presented by the Dude and Grim Show and co-produced by Mr. IVEST. I am the Dude.
And I am Grim. And today we are here to talk about AI. What is it doing to music? What could it do to music? Will it destroy music as we know it? A lot of people have been talking about this, so in the spirit of any good show, we had to put forth our opinion, of course.
Of course.
This is what they pay us for.
It is. What they're going to pay us for. Yeah. Well, Grim, it's interesting. There's... Now I feel like AI is just everywhere. You're seeing it in photos with Photoshop, video stuff, obviously, music. There's a ton of tools out there. Everybody's getting in on it.
Dude, you did actually a cool Photoshop thing with it where it made the rest of the picture on the cover of Pentodragonic Apocalypse just to see what it would do. That was cool.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually been able to use it on a fair number of our thumbnails where I need to sort of like extend the background over or do something differently.
Oh, really?
So yeah.
And it works better than just like the clone tool. It's not as like wavy.
Yeah. I mean, they still have to work some kinks out. It's still, some things are still in beta. Okay. But so I think the thing is, and this goes with, I think, most new technologies and things like that. I think it can be used for some very great things. Yeah. And really productive, positive things. And then, there's always the flip side of that. And I think there'll be some negative things that it's used for.
Misinformation, deep fakes.
Misinformation.
Via deep
There's probably
fakes.
There's probably going to be lawsuits and all that stuff too. But like some of the things people are able to also do some creative things. People who maybe aren't maybe as musically inclined, don't have certain instruments, don't know a lot about, maybe chords and notes and things like that. It's like, hey, write this part, do this, put this beat together.
They can kind of like act as a producer in a way.
A little bit.
Yeah. And that's
absolutely
interesting.
Yeah. But, there are some tools out there. We're not going to go through a bunch of apps and things, but there's a few apps out there. Like one of them, basically you can upload an audio file and it'll change, that to a different voice. So basically you can take someone's vocals and make it sound like someone else. Like I think I sent you yesterday or a couple of days ago, there's Hank Williams literally playing Straight Outta Compton by Ice Cube. I mean, it's just like pretty amazing stuff.
I wanted to send this to you, but I found one that was actually not that bad. And it was Donald Trump and Joe Biden singing Sultans of Swing, like trading verses back and forth.
Yes, there was another Donald Trump one I saw as well. Yeah.
And some of it's better than others, but I mean, I think ultimately certainly, with it being this good already in this short a time, it's only going to get better. And I think a lot of it, I think that the fear, I guess, that I would have is that it could be used to spread misinformation on a mass scale. Now, hopefully that's not the case, but in terms of music, I guess I would argue, is it that different than when MIDI came out? In a way, because it's like, I remember hearing something about how when MIDI came out, a lot of people did a lot of cheesy shit, right? Because you're like, oh my God, I can make my guitar sound like a saxophone. But it turns out that that's kind of cool for like 5 seconds. And then you realize that like it really sounds shitty and in poor taste. So there becomes limitations to what you would and would not do with it if you have artistic integrity or,
Right. Yeah. And I think I'm curious. So to me, there's like a line and I don't exactly know where that line is. Especially from a legal perspective. I think that's something
a big conversation there.
We can get into a little bit, but I mean, dude, here's the thing. people have done, obviously edited songs, pitch bending, auto tune, all this sort of stuff, certain, mastering techniques for years. Like that's nothing new, right?
Yeah.
So you're adjusting the track and the sound. I think where the water gets a little bit muddy though is when you're taking someone's voice, and in a lot of the stuff I've seen out there, for some reason, everybody uses Drake.
I know.
But essentially, it's
maybe they feel bad for him because his music isn't that great. I don't know.
Yeah. But essentially, people are taking a lot of, his vocals and they're like, oh man, I can make it sound like him. Or I can basically write a song. But what happens if, let's say I am an up and coming, hip hop artist and I want to make a name for myself. So I write myself, I write the lyrics and everything, and I'm able to put it into this AI software, and it's able to spit out Drake singing, a small snippet of my song. And then I'm able to put out, hey, it's the dude featuring Drake, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, I guess, does he get credit for that? Does he get a cut of that? Like
I think
what kind of permission is needed?
Yes. I don't know anything about permissions. I mean, a lot of this feels like when people started sampling, and I know that people always reference the Beastie Boys' Paul's Boutique as a very clear delineator, because before that it was like nobody gave a shit, and then all of a sudden people are like, well, I want in on this. This is my song that they sampled, right?
Sure.
So I see a lot of similarities there, and I've heard some artists have come out and said, you can actually do what you want with my voice, provided I get 50% of the proceeds.
Sure.
And okay, that's fine. I think people who appreciate music as an actual art form will continue to go toward bands that they know aren't necessarily interested in that. And if they were interested in it, they would be very deliberate about doing it. They wouldn't just sneak it in, right?
Right.
Like, you really think King Giz is going to be like, you know what? We're not even going to go on tour. We're just going to have AI holograms of ourselves and send that out on the road. Right. Like, I just don't think that's going to happen with a lot of bands.
No, I don't think that'll happen either. I think, it'll be curious to see how sort of some of the mainstream artists start using this. Because right now it seems to me like a tool for people who are, trying, are on, haven't quote unquote made it yet.
Yeah, sure.
And I'll be curious to see how some of the mainstream artists start using some of these tools and incorporating it into their music. Because, one thing we've even talked about is, and I imagine it's very similar, but there are tools out there now where you can put a song into the application and it'll split everything out. It'll break it out into stems, very similar to like what they just did with, Revolver, using Peter Jackson's technology. I mean, I imagine they would say, hey, that's AI, doing that. And there's one called, Lalal or something .ai, and that will do it. Now, I saw some reviews of it and whatnot, and it still has some ways to go. That's probably not what Peter Jackson used, but where there's some frequency crossover, so it's not always. And
I don't know that they could ever totally get rid of that, because the bottom line is, some of those frequencies and harmonics will exist in multiple things in that layered recording.
Yeah.
And there's but even if there's a little bit of crossover, I mean, dude, 10 years ago, I don't even know if this was a conversation that you could have, because that was at the point where you're like, wow, that sounds cool, but it's just not possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I was going to say is, if we're on the subject of the Beatles, do you know the tune "Somebody That I Used to Know" by Gautier and Kimbra?
I do. Yes,
dude, somebody did an AI version of that where Paul McCartney is Gautier and John Lennon is Kimbra. And dude, the John Lennon one was not as convincing, but the McCartney one was really good. I mean, it still, you'd probably know that it wasn't him, but it was unbelievable how they could pick up some of the nuances of the way he would sing and pronounce things. That blew me away.
Yeah, no, it's been interesting to see just the stuff that has come out, and kind of like you said, like, look, this is in the early phases. It's only going to get better. But what's going to happen is like once people start putting this stuff out and money starts being made, there's going to be lawsuits. You're going to have the record companies going after people. It'll be interesting. And
shout out to Rick Beato's video, because he kind of took this in a very in-depth lens on that bit of it.
Yes, yeah,
which was interesting.
He did a fantastic job of that, and I think it just it asks a lot of questions, and it's going to be a tough thing, I think, for the record companies and artists to really navigate.
Yeah,
it's going to be, because what are people, they're going to start trademarking. Like, if I'm an artist, if I'm Drake, dude, I'm trademarking my voice like yesterday, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you do not have permission to use my voice or anything like that, because
and here's where it gets screwy to me. So Drake can say that it's his voice, but he's under contract from Universal Artists Group. So do they own his voice, or does he own his voice?
That's a good point.
And see,
does he own while he's under contract, does he own his voice like during those years? And then if he's not under contract, like at what point, does the ownership change hands?
And he's like, God, finally I can talk again. Jesus, it's been a long couple of years keeping quiet. No, but
that's tough.
I feel more for the artists in this case, because I feel like they would have more.
They're going to get screwed. The
bottom line is the record companies have been raking people over the coals for years, continue to do so. And sorry, like, that's a bitch. You're going to have to figure out how to be more competitive, just like everybody in every other industry. Tough shit. But I don't think, I guess, to answer, or at least what I feel like the answer to the question is, no, it's not going to ruin music as we know it, because one thing in Beato's video we brought up was everyone, like when Napster, when file sharing became a thing, everything got turned on its head, right? And people thought the music industry wasn't going to survive and artists were never going to make money. And well, guess what? They still do. And lo and behold, in a way, it went backwards, and now you got vinyl more popular than ever in a world where it doesn't even need to exist per se.
Yeah.
So I don't think people are just going to turn their back and be like, yeah, I thought the Rolling Stones were good, but I actually prefer the AI version of the Rolling Stones better. That version that they did of Can't You Hear Me Knocking was better than the original.
Yeah, right.
Kind of like Dark Star Orchestra. Some people say they're better than the Dead.
Yeah, absolutely they do. So, well, I think that kind of gets most of our thoughts out there. I'd love to know what people think about, AI, especially, obviously there's legal implications. How do you feel about it from a, creative side of things? Now you're going to get people producing music that maybe would never have done that before, or just having fun with it. Do you think artists that are sort of established and that you've known and loved, what ways could they use it to really enhance what they do? Or is it more of like a, I don't want to say an underground tool, but something that more of the up and comers would sort of be using? I'm just curious to see what some people would think on
me
these
too.
questions.
I'm actually looking forward to a band that's made fully out of robots. I think that would be more interesting. And they should tour.
Yeah. They should tour. Put them on tour. I mean, dude, it'll probably happen. It probably will happen. So, all right. About wraps it up here, Grim, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I'd say it's time to go.
On the Dude
and Grim Show. Scratch the Track is produced by the Dude and Grim. Additional music provided by More and the Tins. Copyright 2023, The Dude and Grim Show.